Hey, what's up? This is going to be a pretty chatty video. Now, I used to buy clothing, a lot of clothing, on a pretty regular basis. There is this UK online fast fashion retailer, and I literally browsed their site every single day. Not for hours, however, for a decent amount of time. And then I moved to New York City, then I moved to London, then I moved back to New York City. And before I moved, as you may know, I had to fit everything into a suitcase, and I just had to do a massive purge because I wasn't physically able to take all my clothing with me without paying any extra for luggage. And so I decided to let go of everything that I couldn't fit into my suitcase. And that really made me realize that I had way more clothing than I needed. I used to be a lover of thrift shopping. I went to the thrift stores on a monthly basis maybe. Some of them had really good deals where I was living at the time. Think of jumpers that were only $1. Think of shirts for $1. You get the idea. It was just really cheap because they occasionally had massive sales, and even if they didn't have any sales, it was still fairly reasonably priced. Because let's be real, sometimes thrift stores can be overpriced for what it is really, because at the end of the day it's just used clothing and it should be priced accordingly, especially if it's not vintage and just regular used clothing from the 80s or 90s or early 2000s. I don't want to stray from the topic though. Long story short, when I embraced minimalism, I decided to only shop for clothing twice a year. I've been doing this now since 2014, and it's changed the game. Why do I do it? Well, I'm someone who gets overwhelmed quite easily. I get overwhelmed with research, I get overwhelmed with buying things, and just thinking of purchasing items really stresses me out. And I simply needed to get this habit of mine of purchasing clothing on a regular basis, although I didn't need any, in check. And what helped me greatly was simply deciding to only shop for clothing twice a year. Over the years, it became crystal clear that March works for me and that September works for me. And those are the months around which I shop for clothing, provided of course that I need something. As you now know from one of my previous videos, I plan all my purchases in advance. And how that usually works is I simply go through my closet, I make a note of everything that I'm gonna need the next year, and then I decide on a month in which I'm going to purchase the item in question. I usually only ever purchase a handful of items of clothing per year, probably 5 to 10 items. It really depends on how my clothing wears and what needs replacing. Anyway, I plan everything that I purchase a year in advance. And then in February, I look at the list, and then in March, I go ahead and buy whatever it is that I need. As you may know, I'm a huge advocate on buying things used over buying them new. And so sometimes buying things used can take a little longer. And I do account for that. So when I say I shop for clothing twice a year, then I mean I have set time periods in which I shop for clothing. Let's say I happen to need a lot. And let's say I happen to need a few items that cost a little more money, let's say shoes. Then I would simply decide to buy all the clothing that I need in March and April. So I simply space my purchases out when I know that I'll need to spend a little more money. That being said, I personally don't spend a whole bunch of money on clothing because, again, I really only need a handful of items every single year. I do the same thing in September. So in September I sit down, I look at the list that I made the year before. I again look at my closet. Maybe new items need replacing, who knows. I just look at it again, and then I go ahead and buy whatever I need to purchase. Again, if I'm looking for something used, which is usually my default, then it can take, of course, a little longer to find what I truly like. And a lot of the times I don't find what I need used and then I just purchase it new. And that's an easy process because throughout the years I've come up with a list of brands that I deem suitable, and then I simply go to these brands and purchase the items in question. I also have a relative in the States, and I recently placed an order, had it shipped to her, and she's going to bring me my order soon because this particular company doesn't ship to Europe. So there's that. So sometimes whenever I do buy new, it involves other people and a little more planning because I don't see my relative every month. I probably see her once a year. Doing my clothing shopping just twice a year just gives me peace of mind. Shopping and looking for clothing is not something that I enjoy, not at all, which is why I really only want to deal with it twice a year, if at all. In the past, I used to spend a lot of time shopping and looking for clothing and browsing online stores. I no longer do that. I deem it as a waste of time. It's not worth my energy. And planning my shopping, planning all my purchases in advance, and that of course includes clothing, and purchasing only 2 times a year has just made the whole experience so much smoother and so much easier. And it also saves me money. I'm less likely to purchase anything on impulse because everything is planned for and everything is scheduled to be purchased in a particular month that I decided beforehand. And those months, as I said, for me are March and September. And while all of that might sound incredibly complicated, it's actually pretty easy. I have a list at hand, I look at my closet, I check what needs replacing again when the month comes around, and then I simply go ahead and buy what I need. For me, it's all about purchasing items that I actually need as opposed to just buying things because I want them. And while I do purchase items solely because I want them, because, well, I could just have one dress, right? One dress would be just fine. However, the one dress that I have right now, yes, I have one dress, I wear it every single week, multiple times per week. I'm freaking obsessed with it, and then I sat down, I was planning all my purchases for the year and figured, well, why not get 1 or 2 more dresses? I love wearing dresses so much, and yet I only have one dress, meaning whenever it's in the wash, I'm a little bit bummed because I'm not able to wear it. Now, this purchase might not actually stem from a need because yes, I'm fine with one dress. I just prefer having options and having more than just one dress. I think looking at what you want and what you need can be truly life-changing, and shopping only 2 times a year has just made the whole process so much easier. And it's something that I recommend to anyone. Make a list of everything that you need the year before, and then decide on 2 months in which you are going to shop for these items. Of course, it can also be just once a year or every 2 years. It really depends on your needs. It depends on the size of your closet. I have a very small closet of very few items, so of course things need replacing more often as opposed to having a huge closet. I wear almost everything that I have on a weekly basis, so clothing just wears down and needs replacing. I would love to hear if shopping for clothing twice a year or once a year, every 2 years would be something that's of interest to you, or if it's something that you're actually practicing right now. Have a lovely day and see you next time.